Upon entering Tulsa, it was obvious that I was leaving the South and entering the Midwest and Southwest. The architecture, demographic, and cultural influences were very different from the South, and I learned that Tulsa was first settled in the 1830s by Native Americans. I realized I didn't know much about the history of Native Americans, the original residents of this land, so I left the city in hopes of learning more. About an hour outside of Tulsa, I arrived at the Cherokee Heritage Center. The center has an exhibit on the Trail of Tears of the 1830s, when the Cherokee were forced from their homeland in Georgia westward towards Oklahoma. The center also has a replica of what a Cherokee village used to look like before they were forced to move and change their way of life. While at the village, we received a demonstration from a member of the Cherokee tribe.
Now, baskets were made for gathering, harvesting, and storing things in, so this would have been about the smallest basket that we would have made. And they're made out of any type of vines we could find. Here we have some small grapevine. You could also use ivy, willow branches. Today we use a lot of honeysuckle and buckbrush vines. The colors would have came from different types of nuts, roots, barks, and berries. Anything that would stain your hands would make an excellent dye for this basket. Including several different types of corn, we also grew gourds, squash, beans, pumpkins, sunflowers, potatoes, and tobacco. And all the square-shaped buildings, like this one here, was a summer home. Now these homes were used only to sleep in at night. Everything else would be done outdoors. That's why there's no windows and just the one opening, but that helped to keep the home cool. And on a really hot day, we'd wet down the dirt floors, cover up our opening, and stay at least 10 degrees cooler inside than it was outside. Okay, the small dome-shaped building over here is a miniature version of the winter home. Okay, during the winter time, we built a fire inside to heat it up. The ground and the walls would absorb the heat, and there'd be an opening at the top to let out all the smoke. At night, we just swept out the coals and the ashes, laid our skins and furs on the ground, and then covered up both of the openings. That way the whole house would be like a heater. Okay, stickball was a game that was played between tribes to try to settle disputes without having to go to war. Okay, it's basically the last-ditch effort before all-out war with another tribe. In the war version of stickball, you're on a big empty field with 2 large trees or poles on each end. What you're trying to do is get a ball between your opponent's poles. The ball is about the size of a golf ball and it's stitched up similar to a baseball. Okay? Get the ball between your opponent's poles and you score a point. Play the game all day long and then add the points at the end of the day. Okay, simple enough, right? Well, the size of the field would depend on how many people were playing. It could be as small as a soccer field, but it could get up to being about 2 miles across. You could have 50 to 500 men playing at one time. Okay, you were going to be running because once you had the ball, you became the target. Okay, all these other men, they're going to be hitting your sticks with theirs trying to get you to drop that ball. If that didn't work, they'd turn that stick over, go after your wrists or your elbows. And if you're a really fast runner, they're going after your knees or your ankles. Just anything to stop you or slow you down. So this was a very rough and violent game. There were lots of injuries. There were even a few deaths. But we thought it was better to lose 5 or 10 men playing stickball than to lose hundreds or thousands by going to war. Okay, now the blowgun's made out of river cane. So this has to be hollowed out and straightened before we can use it. Okay, first thing we do is hollow it out by taking hot rocks or embers from the fire, dropping that down one side, and then the fall and land on top. Take a thinner piece of river cane, slide that down inside, and then apply pressure to it so that burns through the joints and not through the side. Now this is a small dart compared to what we used to shoot. They could have been 18 to 20 inches long and about half the width of a pencil. Now we never poison the darts. We thought if we poison the darts, it would contaminate the meat and then poison us when we ate them. So it's kept them very clean and very sharp. Now this fluffy stuff on the end, it's on there just to help it fly straight, but it's the down of a thistle, that big purple weed that grows on the side of the road. Now blowguns did have a range of around 40 to 60 feet, but since we didn't poison the darts, we'd always try to get within about 8 to 10 feet if I were hunting for them to really be effective. Okay, now I'm not the best shooter in the world, but I'll give you a quick demonstration. Now bows are made out of any type of hardwood, usually oak, ash, hickory. Today this is a favorite wood to use. Can anyone recognize it?
Osage orange.
Osage orange. Around here we call it bow dart, coarse apple, hedge apple, Osage orange, yellow locust. It's one of the hardest woods in North America, that's why it's a favorite to use today. Now whatever type of wood you're going to use, this is what your bow starts out looking like. Okay, simply just a tree. You're going to take the trunk of that tree and split it a few times so you have some pie-shaped wedges. Okay, then you'll start with the side that had the bark on it, and that's the back side of the bow. Okay, you'd pick a growth ring, and you'd follow that growth ring down the entire length of your bow. That's what's going to keep your bow from breaking. Okay, now string we used, You could use animal gut. Rawhide, we use a lot of sinew, which runs on the back strap or the inner thigh of a deer. Pretty much any part of the animal that was too tough to eat, we would stretch it out and dry it and use it for string. Now, did you all know you can always tell Cherokee arrows by looking at the feathers? Any idea what you'd look for? Well, we used a lot of turkey feathers just because we ate a lot of turkeys, but any type of large bird feather would work. There's actually the number. There's only 2. Where most tribes use 3, some even 4 feathers. We found you only need 2 when properly attached to pick up the end and stabilize in flight. I'm going to shoot the bow and arrow for you, so you all might want to take off running. Where we came to pray and worship, to ask for guidance, and to give thanks. Now, the way we did this was by singing and dancing. We'd have a fire going in the middle, and everyone who wanted to dance would line up, man, woman, man, woman. We'd start walking in a counterclockwise motion around the fire. Now, the men would sing songs, and in their songs were prayers. We believe the smoke from the fire would carry those prayers to the Creator. Okay, now here only the men would sing. Women would keep the beat and the rhythm of the song by wearing shackles. Now, these would be worn below the knee, one on each leg. When the men would start singing, the women would start stomping their feet. Okay, now these are made out of terrapin or box turtles, which were cleaned out and filled with small river rocks. Now, a full set would have 12 to 14 turtles that would be worn on each leg. And once those are filled with the rocks and tied down, could weigh 20 to 30 pounds apiece. Canoe, very good. You know how we get these hollow? Burn them out, very good. It was easier to let fire do most of the work. Set small fires along the top and let that burn into the wood. Then we take an axe, hatchet, or even a long stick, go back and just scrape away at the charred wood just to help the fire along a little bit. Now, these are smaller versions of a canoe. Do you have any idea how long they may have been? They're at least 30 to 45 feet long. They would hold anywhere from 8 to 20 grown men. Now, they wouldn't have to be too wide because to ride one of these, you would just sit on your knees or stand up. The only real maintenance a canoe required was to keep it greased down. We take bear fat and rub that on the inside and the outside of the canoe really well, and that just sealed the wood. It waterproofed it, but mainly kept it from drying out and cracking. And this is where all the meetings were held. Anything that had to do with the village would be talked about in here before anything was done about it. We would have a meeting almost every evening, and everyone was allowed to attend those, men, women, and children. Now, our council house was built high up on a mound that stood around 40 to 60 feet tall. There would not have been a doorway where we walked in. There would be a solid wall with another section of benches there, and water came in through a tunnel that was built in the mound. The small openings all on the bottom, now those are just for ventilation because there would have been a fire going in the middle. Now, if you'll notice, our council house is 7-sided. And this is centered around the 7 clans. Every Cherokee village had the same 7. They're bird, wolf, deer, paint, blue, long hair, and wild potato. The 7 clans are like 7 large families. Everyone within your clan would be considered your brother or sister. So at this time, when a couple got married, they married someone outside of their clan. And now if that couple ever had children, they would all be born into the mother's clan because we are a matrilineal society. So that family did live together outside, but when they came into the council house, the husband sat with his clan, his wife and all their children would sit with her clan. We did have 2 chiefs. We had a peace chief and a war chief, and each was in charge during those times. So when we were at peace, the peace chief was in charge. If we ever made the decision to go to war, he would step down and the war chief would take over.
I wish as humans we'd learn to appreciate and learn from other cultures, rather than fear their foreignism.